your contribution and name, then send it to 7197. Your views, our interviews on Spectrum, Radio 1 FM 90.
Hello, a very warm welcome. This is Spectrum on Radio 1. I'm your host, Edmond, Kizito. On Spectrum tonight, Uganda attains 49 years of independence. Is the country on the right track, taking into account the ideals of independence? Uganda will mark 49 years since attaining independence on the 9th, an occasion that gives citizens an opportunity to reflect on the journey the country has gone through since 1962. Uganda has gone through several political, economic and social challenges, with different governments struggling to build on the foundation laid by the colonial masters. Commemoration of independence in any given country comes with questions, key among which is whether the country has attained or is progressing along the ideals of those that agitated for independence. It also gives us an opportunity to compare and contrast the situation under which we are with those in other countries which attained self-rule at the same time as Uganda. This country has had different leaders, but the current leadership of Yoweri Kaguta Museveni and the NRM has been at the helm longest, 25 years in office. Naturally, this gives it more burden, a bigger burden, because it has led at a time when the country has had more resources than ever. While the opposition believes that the NRM should have done better in strengthening the independence ideals, the NRM on its part believes it has transformed the country and that despite challenges, the chances of more success for Uganda are still high, with only the NRM at the helm. Now, the theme this year is on the threshold of the 50th independence anniversary, success and challenges. So as we prepare to commemorate the 49th independence anniversary this year and the 50th one next year, we ask tonight, taking into account the ideals of independence, is Uganda on the right path, looking at the past, the present and the future? Our guests tonight, Hon Kabakumba Masiko, Minister in charge of the presidency. She's expected to join us shortly. In the studio right now with me, we have Mr. Asuman Basalirwa, President of the Justice Forum Party, also known as JEEMA. You're most welcome, Mr. Basalirwa.
Thank you, and good evening to all the listeners out there on the management of Spectrum for inviting me.
Well, talk to us about what you think Uganda has got out of independence.
Yes, thank you very much. You have given a very good preamble. But as we analyze whether we're on the right path or not, it's important for us to ask questions. Why did our forefathers struggle for independence? The likes of Ignatius Musazi, Augustine Kamya, Milton Obote and the others. What compelled them to struggle for independence? And if you answer that question, then it would be important for us to create a balance sheet then and now. What were the issues at that time? The issue was self-rule. The issue was governance, self-governance. The issue was independence. There was a belief at that time that the colonial rulers were exploiting us, exploiting our natural resources, exploiting our human capacities and abilities, and we felt that we had the capacity as indigenous people to take back our country, to be in charge of our country. That struggle came at a very heavy cost. It was a very heavy price. You remember in 1945, 1949, riots broke out throughout the various parts of the country. And what were the issues? People were fighting against land alienation, discrimination, and these riots, by the way, were quelled by police and the army. Armored vehicles were ferried from Kenya to come and quell those riots here. And leaders were arrested at that time. So agitation grew. And towards the 1960s, the British colonial rule adopted a rather liberal role, because agitation had increased and it had become apparent that Ugandans had to achieve self-rule or independence. So the issue of freedom, the issue of liberty, the belief that we had the capacity, the belief that we had the resources to manage our country were primary factors that led our forefathers to struggle for independence. Now, when we attained independence in 1962, there are issues that symbolized our independence. Our values, our principles, and aspirations were espoused, for instance, in the national anthems. When we reflect in what is in the national anthem. The three of them. How far have we gone? O Uganda, may God uphold thee. We lay our future in thy hands. Okay? United, free for liberty.
Yes.
As a country, are we united? Are we united? As a country, do we have liberty? Look at the second part. O Uganda, the land of freedom. Our love and labor we give. And with neighbors all at our country's call in peace and friendship we live. Every statement, every line in those national anthems espouses the aspirations of those who struggled for independence. Now, if we went line by line in the first part of the national anthem, we even our motto, for God and my country. Look at our national flag, the symbolism in the three colors in the national flag. You know, the black race, the red blood, and the yellow, the climate, and the rest. Those symbols, have we exploited them? Are they being reflected in our country now? Those are very, very fundamental questions. Look at the first, and of course, there is also another symbolism in it all. That as we celebrate 49 years or close to 50 years, the person who, for example, composed the national anthems is languishing. And just the other day, I think the president was making a commitment of 25 million shillings. Okay? Look at that symbolism. Look at that pathetic fallacy, as we used to call it in literature. So, are we a God-fearing country, for example? Not so long ago, there was a research that Uganda is a country of contradictions. People go to churches, go to mosques, but at the same time, they have never abandoned belief in their own traditions, in witchcraft. Are we a God-fearing country? Look at the level of corruption now in our country. Does corruption reflect a spiritually conscious country? Look at that. Look at the question of unity, which is espoused in the national anthem. Are we a united country? Every day, there is this multiplication of districts, the balkanization of society we are in as a country. All those reflect negatively on the aspirations we had as a country. Every tribe now thinks about getting a district. Okay? There are now ethnic clashes virtually everywhere. You know what has been happening in Chibali and that area. LC5 chairperson sort of was forced to resign because of tribal tensions. Okay? Look at what has been happening here in Central between Uganda and Burundi. Are we a united country? Because that was one of the aspirations, achieving unity. Okay? This idea of dividing the country like a wedding cake, where is it coming from? Where did we discuss it as a country? To say that whoever wakes up and wants a district should be given a district. Okay? You are talking about, in the second part of our national anthem, okay? We are talking about fertile soils. Our love and labor we give. Okay? The fertile soils. But people are dying of hunger. In a country which was once described as the Pearl of Africa, people are dying of hunger. We are a country whose seasons, climatic seasons, are balanced. A balance in terms of rainy season, a balance in terms of the dry season. Okay? But people are still dying of hunger. But one of our aspirations, as expressed in the national anthem, was that we acknowledge the fact that we are a country with fertile soils. Have we taken advantage of the fertile soils? The love we are talking about, the labor we give, and with the friends and neighbors, are we at peace with our neighbors? What message do we send when we procure 2 fighter jets What message?
What do you mean to bury? We have 6 of them.
Yes, I'm talking of the most recent. Those which were procured most recently. I think early this year or something like that.
Well, we got 6 fighter jets actually from Russia.
Yes. Okay, there are 6. Thank you for the correction. What message are we sending to our neighbors? Okay, when we are cited in interfering in affairs of Congo, in Rwanda, and the rest, what message are we sending? Okay, so it's really a balance sheet. And if you ask me, should we really celebrate independence? In terms of percentage, I would say 10% should be a celebration. The 90%, as you have rightly observed, should be a reflection.
Right.
We should be reflecting on these questions. The national anthem, because if you want to understand what our independence means as a country, you must look at our national anthems, you must look at our coat of arms, you must look at our national flag. Those are the symbols of independence. What is the symbolism? Because those 3 aspects are very pregnant in terms of information, in terms of meaning. So what do they reflect for the country? So whenever you are making an analysis of our independence, it would be important you look at those 3 aspects. You are talking about liberty. Is Uganda a free country? Are people free in the sense of freedom? You know that over time people have become very nostalgic about the colonial era. People are becoming nostalgic about the previous regimes of Amen, of Obete. The party I lead, JEEMA, is a patriotic party. We don't subscribe to the notion that perhaps we should go back to the colonial rule. No.
Why?
In our view, you are better off being in poor shape, if you want to call it, but free, rather than being in plenty but in bondage. So independence means a lot for a country. You are talking about free destiny. You are talking about free will. So what we should be doing as a country is to harness our diverse potential, the human resources, the natural resources, and all other resources available to us as a country to move forward. That's why I said 10% should be celebration, 90% should be a reflection. Never should we ever create a situation where Ugandans are going to be nostalgic about the colonial era. Never.
Let's get something straight. Do you think we got our independence a little bit too early?
Well, freedom or independence has nothing like early. As a matter of fact, we should have gotten it far much earlier.
Well, South Africa got independence only recently. They are much better off than all of us.
No, I think the South African case is different. It is about independence of the black people, basically. But the Afrikaners, you know, the Boers or the whites.
Well, let's talk about the majority, the black.
Yes, you are talking about
and the bondage.
Yes,
apartheid.
That is true. But that apartheid was being perpetuated by fellow South Africans.
Well, let's look at it that way.
The difference was in
one
terms
side
of
was oppressing another.
Yes, but they have also moved forward. When we look at their truth and reconciliation.
Now let's get one fact clear.
Yes.
The blacks were colonized, to borrow the term.
Yes.
For a long time.
Yes.
Up to 1994.
Yes, up to 94.
And you know, they're the most prosperous country. Maybe there's a connection between colonialism and or subjugation by good people, wealthy people with good ideas, and prosperity. Maybe.
Well, I that's an area I have not ventured into because it's in my view it would be empirical if we carried out some empirical and scientific evidence.
Haiti never got independence much earlier than most of us, and they are very, very badly of voodooism.
That is true. That is true, and that's why I'm saying we need a lot of reflection. What has gone wrong as a country? What has gone wrong? How come our leaders, the political leadership especially, is failing to harness the rich human, the rich natural resources for us to move forward? Those are issues we should be reflecting upon. That's why in this year's celebration, in my view, at least there should have been a difference.
Yes.
We should have seen a situation where the current regime of President Museveni and NRM is calling stakeholders to a national dialogue.
About what?
About what the
won an election recently.
Yes, you win an election today, and tomorrow everybody in the country is up in arms. You remember how the work to work became a national issue.
Yes, in April.
So those are things to reflect upon. If I have just won an election with over 65, close to 70%, how come the whole country is working in a protest, and you have to use the most brutal force to stop people from working? So this year's celebration perhaps could have been different. This would have been the time perhaps for the current leadership to call stakeholders to a national dialogue, to a national conference. And the message should be very clear to say, this year we are not going to spend money on celebrations in Kowero. We are not going to spend money for decoration. We are not going to spend money on various things. We want to spend money to invite stakeholders, to invite people to a national dialogue, to look at where we have come from, where we are, and where we are going. And that would be a very good message which is capable of embracing everybody and perhaps even saving money, especially in the current economic meltdown we are facing as a country.
Listeners, this is Spectrum on Radio 1. Tonight on Spectrum, Uganda attains 49 years of independence. Is the country on the right track? Taking into account the ideals of independence, our guests, Mr. Asuman Basalirwa, President of the JEEMA Party, Justice Forum Party, also known as JEEMA. We also expect to be joined by Hon Kabakumba Masiko, the Minister in charge of the presidency. You two will be able to call in the second half of this discussion. Asuman, let's go back a little bit to independence. Why did we go wrong? They gave us independence with good intentions. They gave us a hospital. The Queen gave us a Mulago Hospital as an independence gift. We got the Owen Falls Dam around about the same time. We've never done anything close to that up to now, 50 years later. What went wrong?
Well, I think, first of all, let's not emphasize what the colonial regimes left here, because as a matter of fact, these were not their resources.
Well, but they manage them in a certain way. We have them, we're failing to manage them in a certain way.
Exactly.
We can't build a hospital close to
the point we need to make very clear is that whatever we were given was not out of magnanimity of the colonial regime.
Look at the quality of us as managers.
Yes, I wanted to get that out of the way, because I have had arguments before. They left good roads, hospitals, schools, and the rest. That's right. But was it their resources?
Forget about that. Whatever the intention.
Yes.
They were better managers.
Yes.
So they got it from me and they did it for us.
Exactly. Exactly. Where have we gone wrong as a country?
Yes.
The post-independent leaders across board abandoned the ideals of independence.
At what point?
No, as they acquired it, you know.
Let's look at our own.
Yes, you know that in Uganda, I'll tell you that as early as 1964, things were not good.
What happened?
You remember in 1964 the army mutinied.
Yes.
Okay, there was a mutiny in the army, and the reason, poor welfare. Okay, failure to promote non-commissioned officers. So as early as 1964, the first post-independence regime was having problems in managing the army. The post-independent leaders in Uganda abandoned the independent ideals, were driven by greed, they became egocentric, they failed to think for the country, and began thinking for themselves. That's why over time the mistakes have virtually been the same.
But let's get this slowly and very clear.
Yes.
Some of these were very, very inexperienced. Again, back to the point. Maybe we got it a bit too early. Milton Obote was 36 in 1962.
Yes.
He didn't have any precedents.
Yes.
You know, what would you expect of a man like that?
Well, I don't know what precedent you are talking about.
Well, look at the history before that and look at the history now.
Yeah, in terms, I am 33 now. But I don't think I am incapable of running
you
a
have
state.
a lot of benefit. You have the worldview is different from the worldview in 1960.
That is true.
That Obote was
you see, leadership, and the mistake we make, leadership must not be individualistic. Leadership must be collective. Because we are all bestowed with different talents, with different abilities. Where you have an ability, I may have a deficiency. That's why the most important thing that should have been done at that time was to build a collective vision, to build teamwork, to work together for the good of the country, and to put the country ahead of personal interests. But over time, our leaders, and this has been a historical problem, along the way they abandoned even their own standards they set. In the 60s, you know, that in an attempt to have grip on power, Dr. Paul Milton Obote had to rely on the army. Okay?
Yes.
He had to rely on the army. There were no elections from 1962
yes.
up to the time he was removed from power on 25th January 1971.
Right.
There were no elections, but these were leaders that had come into office through elections.
Yes.
Look at the invasion of the Lubiri in 1966,
yes.
and the animosity there was between the Kabaka as ceremonial president and Milton Obote. Okay. They began building the intelligence units. Dr. Obote had made his cousin one of the leaders, yes, of the general service unit. Yes. Okay, and these were very, very powerful institutions, and as a result, civil institutions like the police were emasculated. When Field Marshal Idi Amin came into power, the situation was not any different. 1971 issues decrees. Okay,
no parliament.
No parliament. You know that he had promised to have to be in power for a short period of time. Okay,
like some people I know.
Yes, that's where I'm getting to.
I want
they had promised to get to be in power for a very short period of time. Now, over time, the greed, that egocentricism, which is innate in man, stroke woman, takes up all these post-independent leadership, and the situation was not any better. You know that in 1979, President
Amin was overthrown.
Yes, when Amin was overthrown through a combined force of Tanzanians, Ugandan exiles, the Kos Malum, and the Seven Group, President Seven and Group, and Bina Issa. You know, the late Bina Issa, for example, he was totally opposed to this idea called multipartism.
He had the umbrella system.
He had the movement style.
Right.
And why? Because even after testing power,
unity, that's what
yeah, but of course there was no nexus between the two, between this unity and political parties. There was no nexus at all.
Okay.
But it was all geared towards the greed, the self-centeredness. And the situation was not different when Obote came to power again in 1980.
Yes.
Between 1980 and 1985, it was the same story.
All right.
Banning political parties, restricting political press.
Oh.
You know, yes.
Go on.
You remember that I think 1984-83, the International Committee of the Red Cross was chased from this country.
All right.
The international media were chased from this country.
Okay.
So, in 1986, the situation is not very different.
We'll talk about that. This is Spectrum on Radio 1 tonight. Uganda turning 49 years of independence. We're analyzing it. Our guest in the studio, Mr. Asuman Basalirwa, president of the JEEMA party. Very knowledgeable, I must say. We expected to be joined by Hon Kabakumba Masiko, minister in charge of the presidency. She seems not to have been able to make it. We'll go for a break. When we come back, we'll look at the NRM. They've been in power half of the time that we've been independent. We'll look at that with Mr. Basalirwa, and then you'll be able to call in and contribute to this discussion.
Is your internet provider turning your world upside down? Broadband Company offers fast and reliable internet solutions. And for the first 100 subscribers this month, we offer zero connection fees. Save up to 400,000. For more information on these offers, call toll-free 0800 222 111.
Broadband Company, more than you expect. Many have attempted to navigate the sensual waters of jazz and soul, but few have managed to truly make the genre their own. Fewer still have succeeded in going beyond the ordinary and gaining international acclaim, captivating their audiences, taking them on trips, journeys of nostalgia, and leaving them looking forward to more. Join Gerald Albright and Howard Hewitt, together with a host of jazz and soul maestros, for the annual Nile Gold Jazz Safari on Friday the 7th of October, 6 p.m. at the Kampala Serena Hotel. Come on a journey into the heart of soul. The Nile Gold Jazz Safari, a tribute to the legends of soul. Brought to you by Nile Gold, beyond the ordinary.
Spectrum on Radio 1 FM 90 is brought to you by Stanbic Bank.
Welcome back on Spectrum tonight. Uganda attains 49 years of independence. Is the country on the right track, taking into account the ideals of independence? Our guest in the studio, Mr. Asuman Basalirwa, President of the Justice Forum Party, also known as JEEMA. You'll be able to call him and join this discussion. Next year will mark 50 years. This year is 49 years of independence. So you can begin your countdown to 50 years. It's a landmark. Many countries got their independence in the 60s. So you can even draw lines with other countries. We'll have a series of discussions on this topic as we draw close to this day next week, actually on Sunday. Mr. Basalirwa, and the NRM has been in power half of the time we have had independence. Yes. Have they done well? Should they have come earlier? Maybe it's the only government we should have had since independence.
Well, I will not take it from that angle. But what I want to mention is that they have had the best opportunity